Before I was 5, we lived in 5 different places because my dad became a pilot. His dream was always to fly. He had never flown a plane his whole entire life. And he borrowed money to take flying lessons. And it was during Vietnam, so there was a pilot shortage, so there was an opportunity there. My mom grew up in a really difficult household that was not stable. She grew up in an alcoholic household, and her dream was to have a family that was not like her family. And my dad's just a really even, kind, gentle person. So there was just, discipline is not the right word, maybe just even structure. That kind of goes back to my dad. I had seen my dad remake himself several times. So it's even a longer story, but when my dad was a pilot for a really long time, and it was during deregulation in the 80s, and airlines were being bought and sold and pieces taken apart. So my dad had flown for 25 years. He was a captain at that time. And Frank Lorenzo tore apart Eastern Airlines and had them go bankrupt. And everyone lost all their pensions that they had saved for 25 years. He had many friends that committed suicide. My brothers were both really devastated after my dad's illness. And my one brother does antique car restoration, and my other brother does interior retail design. And we're like, we got the dream team here. What if I hire you guys? Will you build me this dream truck? So we were the first mobile boutique in the state of Wisconsin. So it was a store on wheels, and off we went. And it was a crazy ride.
Today we have another special guest, someone who is extremely important to me, Dr. Karen Tardrew. She is not only a scholar or a leader, but someone who has deeply invested her life in helping others become their best, especially doctoral candidates like myself, striving to find their voice, sharpen their thinking, and cross the finish line of their dissertations. She has a rare ability to build out potential in the people that she's leading before they fully see it within themselves, and then guide them both with precision and care. Her journey extends beyond academia. As an entrepreneur, she brought creativity and vision to life through Grasshopper Goods Mobile, and now continues that spirit through her work in Reiki, focusing on healing, balance, and personal well-being. That combination of intellect and heart is what makes her impact so long-lasting. At her core, Dr. Tardrew is someone who builds people academically, professionally, and personally, and that is the legacy that she continues to leave in every space when she enters. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Karen Tardrew, how are you doing today?
That was so lovely. Oh my gosh, Cameron.
So I don't want to look at my questions too much because this is our first time meeting, okay? And I want to be able to fully envelop your presence right now and really, truly understand with this moment within the moment. So I want to first start, of course, with how are you doing today, but also how are you feeling right now that we are able to meet and able to just have a conversation?
Well, first of all, thank you for the introduction, and how you shouted out the work. I just so appreciate it because it just brings me great joy. And it's one of the favorite parts of my work is seeing the journey, taking it with you, learning so much from you. And I learn more from my students than I think I teach them. That's my hope because I learn a lot. And I'm so glad that we're together face to face today. And now that you are a doctor as well. So congratulations on that. And I'm just excited to have a conversation because now we can have a new relationship that's beyond mentor teacher. So I'm excited for that.
I appreciate all of the help that you've been able to give me along the way. And aside from that, the fact that you remained who you are, who you've always been, from what I can tell throughout our journey, is like special to me. First question I have for you today: when you look back at your childhood, what shaped you the most? Was it discipline? Was it freedom? Or was it survival?
So this is a really hard question because I think it's kind of a swirl. So before I was 5, we lived in 5 different places because my dad became a pilot, and that's a longer story. But I think discipline's maybe not the right word, but structure and evenness. My mom grew up in a really difficult household that was not stable. She grew up in an alcoholic household, and her dream was to have a family that was not like her family. And my dad's just a really even, kind, gentle person. So there was just, discipline is not the right word. Maybe just even structure is what I would say would be the consistent part of my growing up, as well as the freedom question is really interesting though. I always felt free to be who I was. We didn't have pressure to perform or to be anyone other than ourselves. And I always felt seen from my parents, which is just such a gift.
You said that your father was a pilot. How did that influence your worldview growing up? Was it easy? Was it difficult to see the world for what you know it is today? Or
so I learned a lot from Dad and his journey from that. So my dad grew up in a pretty traditional suburban Chicago household. Expectations were pretty straightforward. You went to college, you went to business school, that sort of thing. And my dad, we know now, was dyslexic, but so school was harder for him. And even in college, he kind of went against the grain, and he was the oldest, and that was a difficult journey for him. So he went to U of I, then he left U of I, and he went to Lawrence to study art and math. But when he graduated, my grandfather's like, so you're going to get a business job, whatever. So we got a job. Back then it was like Sears management training program. And my dad hated his life. And he was like, his dream was always to fly. He had never flown a plane his whole entire life. And he borrowed money to take flying lessons. And it was during Vietnam. So there was a pilot shortage. So there was an opportunity there. And he totally went off the rails of what he was supposed to do. And he's had to remake himself several times in his lifetime. So that always inspired me, that he always would follow his dream, get up and work hard for what he really wanted, is one lesson that he gave me. But the other piece was, before I was 5, we lived in 5 different places. We lived in Chicago and then Miami and Atlanta and New York and back in Chicago before I was even 5. And the other thing that was also wonderful was, my kids will tell you this, I'm kind of a weather geek. And my dad would always come home, and that was back in the day when you had to actually fly the plane. Computers didn't fly the plane, so you had to know wind shear and weather and all that kind of stuff. And my dad would come home, he'd smell of diesel fuel, which is like this, and he had this beautiful uniform on. And he'd come home and he'd just tell stories of how close it was, how scary the storm was. That was really fun when I was little. When I was like older and had young kids and I would fly on planes, it kind of freaked me out for a minute. But now I'm back to the magic of it all. But so there was just a storytelling aspect of it that was just really magical, and just also knowing that you can do what you want to do. You can follow your dream. You don't have to go a certain way. And I just really appreciate that. And the more, I mean, he's been gone for quite a while, but the more I think of it when I'm older, what a gift that was. I didn't realize that until recently, what a gift that was. I mean, it was exciting because it was like the 60s and 70s for flying planes. So kind of that, everybody dressed up and all that kind of stuff. So It was kind of felt a little glamorous. That was fun. Sure. But I felt more the stability growing up that kind of was my cement foundation. But as I got older and things happened in my life, I realized I went back to that time where I saw my dad take risks and do different things. As a kid, I don't think I really saw that, but it definitely is ingrained in me as far as like, follow your dream, do what you want, that kind of thing.
We talked about your dad and how he influenced you, impacted your life. Talk to me a little bit about your mom. How did she do the same, and what was your relationship with her growing up?
Had a great relationship with my mom growing up. My mom, like I said a little bit ago, she grew up in a really abusive, emotionally unstable household. Her dad was an alcoholic, but he wasn't the abusive one. Her mom was abusive, verbally and physically, to my mom. And when my mom and dad met, they were very young. my mom was really drawn to the stability of my dad's family, and she knew that she wanted to break the trauma cycle, and she would talk about it every day. I mean, every choice she made in her life was about her kids and about having a loving, unconditional home that was really supportive. My mom was really funny. My dad was really funny too, but in a quiet way. But what I loved about mom was because she was so resilient and such a survivor, she was really humble, and she didn't take things too seriously. So she would make fun of herself, or if she messed, she'd love to bake. If she messed it up, she couldn't be a perfectionist in her life, or she was, it was very difficult growing up. So I think her flexibility as a mom was super important. And then when I became a mom, I just remember my mom would always say, just play with the kids. Nobody's going to remember if your house was clean. Just just relax. Don't worry about it. And to this day, I hope that I had raised my kids that way. And I tell my daughter that now with her, because there's some days you're really hard on yourself, and it's a lot. And nobody's going to remember. They'd rather that you're just making Play-Doh or like going for a walk or whatever. So her resiliency was, and her wanting to break a cycle, I just so admired, because her family was kind of terrible to her for yeah.
So you get through elementary school, middle school. What high school did you attend?
I went to Barrington High School, okay. Chicago suburbs, Northwest.
Graduate high school. Mm-hmm. Then what college did you attend?
I went to Indiana University, Bloomington, and I went there because that's why when you asked my question about, like, did my dad's experiences affect what I wanted to do? At the time, I don't think it did, but I always thought I wanted to be a teacher. I made everybody in the neighborhood play school. I was the teacher. I was kind of the oldest kid in the neighborhood. I was the oldest sibling of all my brothers. And we had a family friend that had a very, that was mentally handicapped and deaf. And we spent a lot of time with that family. And I really thought I wanted to go into special education. And that was my job in high school. I worked for special ed camps, and at that time, for a lot of time in the 70s, there was really no special ed laws. So a lot of special needs people were at home or in institutions or things like that. And then the special ed law passed in the 70s. And so when I went to college, which was in the early 80s, there were only a handful of schools that had in the Midwest that had special ed programs. So that's why I went to Indiana University.
Okay. And when you always knew you want, since that, inspiration of, I'm looking at people who are in need of this help, you graduate and you set your eyes on that. Was there anything outside of the graduation moment where you said, you know what, I'm not sure if I really want to do this, or let's say after? Did someone doubt you? Did someone say this isn't what you should be doing? Did someone say you don't have the capabilities in doing this? And how did you internalize that?
So I had a really traumatic experience and almost left the field. So at the time when I graduated in 86, there was a teacher surplus. So it was really hard to find a job. And so it took me forever. I mean, I kind of got a last spot in a place that I will leave anonymous. And it was a good hour drive. Steve and I, my husband and I were first married, didn't have a lot of money, had a terrible car. I'd drive up to this job. And my degree was in cross-category. Back then they called it cross-categorical. So it was basically like an umbrella for like any kind of handicap. So They kind of would lump all the kids together. There was not really it wasn't very nuanced at that time. And also the training was not great for people with different needs. It was basically behavior modification. So, which meant if you do something good, I'm going to give you a sticker, or I'm going to give you a cookie or a point. And I was very interested in working in areas where students were underserved. And I had kids that were hungry, physically and sexually abused, you name it. And a cookie's really not going to be a motivator, or it's going to be a weird way to manipulate someone if they're hungry. So anyway, so I started this job. I was a terrible teacher, or I thought I was a terrible teacher. I cried my whole drive up, my whole drive down. I had no control over my classroom. It was middle school, and had this terrible car. And at that point, my parents were like, you guys need to get a better car because this is kind of ridiculous. So I think my parents helped us a little bit for a down payment, and we finally got a tiny little Ford Escort, brand new car. Like, okay, this is going to at least one win. We're going to, and we're leaving the car dealership to go home, and we get hit by a drunk driver and they total the car.
Jeez.
So that was not fun. And so then I was off work for a bit, and I went back to work, and I was in a neck brace because I was injured in the accident. And I thought, at least the kids are going to be nice to me now because I'm in a neck brace, and
kids can be cruel.
Kids can be cruel.
Kids can be very cruel.
And at that time also, for people that had IEPs at that time, there were a lot of, and I know there's still rules about how much you can suspend or, what kind of disciplinary action you can take. But there was a lot of retention back then. So I was teaching 8th grade at the time, and a lot of my students were like 16 years old, and they were just waiting to be old enough to drop out. And they were not appropriate to be in a middle school setting at all. So there was a violent act against me that day when I got my first day back. And I went down to my principal and I said, I'm done. I can't do that. I'm a terrible teacher. I can't do this. And he said, you'll never teach ever again. I will pull your license. I will put a mark on your record. You'll never teach again. And at that point I was like, okay, fine. I'm a terrible teacher. I'll work at McDonald's. I am clearly not fit for this job. So I went home and told Steve that I quit my job. And we kind of sat with it for a minute. And then he was like, you've always wanted to teach. I think you should at least try to sub or something, because I needed a job too. So it was just, there's a lot of things in my life that have been sort of serendipitous. And I walked into a district that I had originally wanted to get a job at, but it was too hard, too competitive. And somebody's mother was ill and they were leaving and they needed a permanent sub that day. And I had the certification that they needed. So I took that job, but we're still under the same realm of behavior modification, and it was very self-contained, and I didn't have the support I needed, and I didn't have the kind of educational experience that I really needed to reach those kids. So I decided that I was going to get a master's so I could work at Scholastic Books or something, because I'm I'll stay in the field, but I'm obviously a bad teacher. And NLU, National Louis University, actually then it was just the College of Education, was literally a walk from my school. And I enrolled in a master's degree program, and then that changed my whole entire life. I realized it wasn't me. It was how we were teaching these kids.
What do you believe people misunderstand about educators? About the profession itself, because there are plenty of misinterpretations. People believe one thing, parents, communities believe one thing or another. What are some common misconceptions that people may have about the profession or education as a whole that you believe?
Well, I'd like to talk about it in two levels. First of all, we've learned a lot. We know a lot more about how we learning science, and about social emotional learning, and about trauma and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So when I was teaching in the early 80s, that was not happening. It was different. They were trying, but it wasn't the same, right? But what has not changed is that I don't believe that. Well, first of all, I get really annoyed. I don't think teachers get the kind of kudos that they need as far as being professional people in a professional field. And everybody thinks Joe Smith was my teacher. I could do that. That's easy, right? Any teacher I've had, I could do that. No, that is not true. That is totally not true. The with itness that it takes to be an educator, and the amount of decisions that you have to make in a day, is astronomical. And that you are basically have a little society every day, and all those humans come in and they're totally different than they were the day before because of whatever happened. And there's like 30 of them that all have different needs, and they're all humans. So they might be in a bad mood. They might, so that, and I'm not even talking about teaching anything yet. That's just dealing with humans and the parents and the administration and whatever. So, but I don't think people have any idea the amount of decisions that you have to make and pressure you have on a daily basis, as well as managing your own professional journey. And now in my grad studies, I teach teachers that are getting master's degrees or doctorates. Most of my teachers that are in underserved areas in schools have families, have other taking care of elderly parents. Most people, I don't think a lot of, everybody thinks, oh, everybody's got summer off or whatever. Most of my teachers have a second job or a third job to make it, because they're paying off student loans, and it's ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. I could go on, but and also I think it's, it is right now for people to choose to go into the field. It comes from a deep place of heart and service, because there's so many other fields you can go into. So if you choose to go into education, you're choosing to go into education, and it's going to be hard, and people are just not supported like they need to be.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like I've had a hard time just dealing with. Teachers are underappreciated, undervalued by society, and it's been going on for decades, and unfortunately it may continue for decades until we have a real change. Speak to me about when you got into grad school. Give me the time frame specifically of when you found out that you were dyslexic, and how did that impact your confidence early and moving forward?
So I found out I was dyslexic. Okay, so what's really ironic is I'm in special education. I should have known that I was dyslexic. Okay, there's just that. But I know now that I wore a mask and I compensated in a million different ways so that I didn't know that I was dyslexic. I'm extremely visually gifted, which I will actually say that I am. And I'm fat. My brain's fast. I know that now.
Quick. Creative,
I'm pretty quick.
Intelligent, smart. I'll say it so you don't
okay,
have
thank
to say
you.
It.
But also, and my social emotional skills were, I knew how to kind of, when I was in school, it was very traditional. In elementary and even through high school was just like a midterm and a final situation. It was just like read the book, listen to the lecture, whatever. And I need to move around. I need to talk about things. I need to be with people. So I started to learn how to do school. Just, I think now that I know, because I'm quick that way. So I would just size the room up. Okay, this is the teacher. These are the people in my classroom. Like, who can I work with? Who can I study with? How do I? And I was never behind enough. I was like a B student, but all my friends were like super smart A's, and like it just was so easy for them. So I just felt like, why is this so much harder for me? And I never figured that out. And so anyway, so in grad school and in undergrad at Indiana, I had to get so much help from friends and study, because it was literally huge lecture halls, 800 people in a room, and it was 2 tests, and it was literally like my worst nightmare. So I got through, but not without a lot of tears. And but at grad school, this is when I learned. This is when I realized, like, I know school, and and this is why I stayed in the field. So I realized, like, I wasn't reaching the kids in the classroom, because we really needed to look at who they were as a whole person. That really wasn't happening that much at the time. That was new research. Self-esteem research was new. Trauma was new. All that. So I created a program that was student-centered learning, and that was what I did my master's study on. But when I was doing that, I worked with an assessment person to practice testing and to figure out kind of things. And she tested me, and that's how we found out that I was dyslexic. So, yeah.
Wow. So you went through majority of your academic career not knowing that, and just pushing through. Just being resilient. That's, another thing that I would, attribute that I would use to describe you. You've poured into plenty of educators, including myself. What's your philosophy in developing, mentoring, teaching, developing young educators altogether?
It's heart. It's heart and caring and connecting. To me, it's really a connectedness that's really important to me. Part of my doctoral work, I had to study part of for my dissertation. It's kind of a problem though, because they call it an impositional relationship, because I really wanted to have a relationship with my students. And then so sometimes the boundary of professor and student are blurred, which a lot of professors would be like, yeah, that's a no-no. But to me, we're all humans on this earth to learn from each other. And it's just so exciting and curious. And if you're able to just be vulnerable and just be like 100% yourself and raw and real, that's when the magic happens. So to me, it's really about this connectedness, building real relationships, trusting relationships, and knowing, like, being honest, where if I'm having a bad day, you would know. I would tell you, I'm like, it's been a minute. Today's been a lot, but because that's real. Like, to pretend that I'm this like Dr. Tardrew and like I got all my shit together, like nobody has their shit together. Like nobody has all of it together. But we have to trust each other that it's a safe space too, that to really go in uncomfortable places and grow like deeply, you have to feel safe in that space to grow, I think.
Yeah. I mean, listen, when I introduce myself now to people, I say, hey, my name is Dr. Kimbrough. How's it going? Knowing that there's going to be an assumption right off the bat. But in all seriousness, I do understand not only like what it took to, get your doctorate, but be comfortable in that space of, hey, you know what? I'm leaning into the doctor question I have for you, but completing this dissertation. You have someone now. Luckily, I had you, right? Someone who's phenomenal, right? Just lighthearted, warm, but having someone tell you day in and day out, week after week, month after month, for 2.5 years or more, this is wrong. Do it again. It's wrong. Do it again. I found out there's a different way to write a paragraph. No clue. I had no clue. There's a different way to write a paragraph, and it's standard. This is what's going on. So for me, that moment, that string of experiences is so much, and it takes time and consistency to get it all done. Talk to me about when NLU came to you and said, we would love for you to stay, but you have to get your doctorate. How did you feel through that process, and how did you feel when it was over, when you finished?
All right. I love the story, but I'm going to tell you one funny thing. So when I first got it's an EDD. So it's not because there's different kinds of doctorates. So it's an EDD, educational doctorate. So when I got my terminal degree and I had the doctor title, I was so excited. And Steve and I went on a trip, and I put it on my plane ticket. And I was warned, like, you do not want to do that, because if there is a medical emergency on the plane, they're going to call you.
Yeah.
And I could do a little interpretive dance or a narrative study, but I'm not going to be able to help you medically. But I was so bummed, because I was like,
all right. But how was that journey for you? Because for me, again, it was so telling regarding what it takes to do something extremely hard for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And also high level rigor, and also higher learning, and also all these. I mean, I can go on and on. How was your experience? And, when you finished, how did you feel?
So once I finished my master's and I did my master's thesis on student-centered learning, we were about to start our family, and I knew I needed a more flexible schedule. So I started to do student teaching supervision for NLU. And then I was able to adjunct one class and whatever. And the next thing I know, they're like, wait, we need somebody to coordinate the Elgin campus. And I was like, okay. So they offered me like an instructor position, which was like cut my salary in half. So we had to really do the math to see if that was going to be worth it. And we're like, okay, we're playing the long game. It makes it more flexible if we have a family, whatever. So it was never my plan. I never thought, because I didn't think I was a great student. But once I was in grad school at NLU and it was writing and reflection and discussion, I like killed it. And I was like, okay, I got this. It's not me. It's traditional school is not the thing. So, because to do high level critical thinking, it's not just doing a multiple choice test. That's not what it's about. So anyway, so I took this position and I loved it. And I realized like, oh my gosh, I love teaching adults. It's fast. It's interesting. I have to be on my toes, all this kind of stuff. And they said, we really want you to stay. We want to offer you a full-time position, but you have to have your terminal degree. And I was pregnant with Kelsey and my eldest. And I was like, does that mean I have to take the GRE? Was the first thing that freaked me out, that I would have to take a standardized test, because that was just not my thing. But I did it. I studied for it and I did it. And but at that point, then I had like academic confidence. My professors in my master's program were incredible, and I, realized like, yeah, I got this. And I love my job, and I love teaching teachers. So it was just this incredible opportunity that I couldn't pass up.
You stepped outside of the system for a bit. So you taught adults and you did that for a while. You could fill me in on how long that was, but you stepped outside of the system. I want to know why. Eventually you launched Grasshopper Goods Mobile.
Mm-hmm.
What pushed you to make that leap, and how did that journey begin?
Okay, so my teaching of adults was at NLU when I was in charge, started to work for the grad program, and a variety of ways of doing that. Then we moved to Wisconsin, to Madison, and we grew campuses up there. I was the academic director up there. And during this time, my dad got brain cancer, and really young. My dad was 60. I'm going to be 61 this week, and my dad had just turned 60. He was still working. And it was a really dark time. And at the same time, in education, it was Act 10, which our governor basically removed all the union rights for teachers. And that's a long story, but it was extremely devastating for my teachers and myself and the state. It was catastrophic financially for teachers. And so it was actually just kind of a sad time. And my teaching, I'm a people person. My teaching had gone from being face-to-face to being blended to fully online. And I was just kind of dying on the vine. And I had always wanted to own my own business and needed something fun and exciting and a new journey. And that kind of goes back to my dad. I had seen my dad remake himself several times. So it's even a longer story, but when my dad was a pilot for a really long time, and it was during deregulation in the 80s, and airlines were being bought and sold and pieces taken apart. So my dad had flown for 25 years. He was a captain at that time. And Frank Lorenzo tore apart Eastern Airlines and had them go bankrupt. And everyone lost all their pensions that they had saved for 25 years. He had many friends that committed suicide. And so my dad at 50 something had to completely start his life all over again and had no retirement after he had worked 25 years. So I saw him do that. And my dad became the assessor of Kimbrough Township. It's a long story. But anyway, he went for an election. He just all right, this is what we got to do. And my dad sold repo cars for a while. They were cleaning out repo cars for a while, and had to sell their house and start over at that age. And I saw him. Steve and I were first married when that happened. So anyway, and then my dad had finally got this other job, and then he got sick. And my dad fought his cancer with grace and made it not about him, and as he does. So it was just a dark time. And I'm like, I need to do something totally different that is out of my comfort zone, that just is bringing me joy. And I had worked at a small little boutique down the street just because it was my favorite store, and I got it kind of a little discount. And I'm like, I could do this. And we come from an entrepreneurial family and art, and I was hoping to have kind of an artisan end to it. And my brothers were both really devastated after my dad's illness, and my one brother does antique car restoration, and my other brother does interior retail design. And we're like, we got the dream team here. What if I hire you guys? Will you build me this dream truck. So we were the first mobile boutique in the state of Wisconsin. So it was a store on wheels, and off we went. And it was a crazy ride. It was a crazy ride.
So the family went into business.
I hired my brothers. I had no idea how to do retail. I went to a women's entrepreneurship retreat, made a business plan, and then I got a loan. And I just and I never turned back. So, and it was going to be like kind of small because I wasn't planning on leaving the field, but I just needed to do something in the summers or like in between and whatever. Yeah.
Talk to me about the hardest realities you faced as a business owner.
That's a whole podcast. Well, the hardest thing was, so we were a couple of things. Bureaucracy really gets in the way for small business owners. There were a lot of regulations in Madison. They didn't know what I was because there wasn't anything like a mobile boutique. So I couldn't get a permit to drive my truck around. So I had to get really creative and innovative and go outside of my city. I had to go to festivals and fairs. And I also realized to have a business like that, I would have to be year round. And, I'm still a full-time professor. So I would have to bring in staff. And then I ended up getting a bricks and mortar so that I could be year round. And then COVID hit. So then there was that. But yeah, so it was, but what I learned the most now, looking back, is all the setbacks financially. It was such a privilege. Steve and I both had good jobs, so it was a privilege and an opportunity that we were able to take risks, because not everybody can take those kinds of risks, because we did lose money, then we made money, then we lost money. So, and the other big lesson is you really need the full support of your family because it's a ride. So there's really hard things that you have to go through, financially, emotionally, all that kind of stuff. And then COVID was just so hard. The whole family came on board to get through that. And because I had to lay off staff and all that kind of stuff. So, but we made it through COVID, and then, yeah.
You employed others. You did a phenomenal job in pulling together the family and doing something that brought other people not only good vibes, but a paycheck. Did you internalize that then? And talk to me about, okay, I'm doing something great and I took the leap to do it, because a lot of people don't necessarily have that initial, okay, things aren't going well, I'm not feeling great. How did you know you wanted to step outside and start impacting so many different people in that moment? And was it a situation where you feel like, if I don't do this, then I'll be leaving something behind?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest small business lessons is you go in with a certain plan, and then you have to constantly kind of reflect and look at what's working, what's not. And you have to be flexible and know that my original idea might not be the final idea. It might be the fourth idea, right? So I knew first I had to go year round. I had hired a friend that was staff, and but then I realized I needed more staff because I needed to be open more, but that meant more payroll. But a lot of life things happened, and it was I was turning 60, and I did it for 10 years, and in reflection, though, I never paid myself, but I paid a lot of payroll over almost 10 years. And that makes me really proud that I helped the community that way. We supported tons of small makers and artists. We had mostly artisan goods. That really makes me proud. And also just that I had the opportunity to take the risk, and we did it. And for all the hard things, the good things just outweigh the hard things, for sure.
I would say, looking back, did entrepreneurship give you something that education couldn't?
Yeah, I would say so. Well, I don't know. I loved making my own mistakes. What's funny is I love no bureaucracy, but what held me back was city bureaucracy. So that's kind of funny. That's ironic. And part of what started it really was connecting with people And that's what I love about education. So that is probably the common thread in everything is the importance to connect people. And there were things that happened in the truck. So and I think that was also when we had to pivot to like really worry about making money and making payroll and being open 6 days a week and all that kind of stuff. The magic really for me when I go back was the truck, because it was such an intimate space and people would come into the truck and people would it was a safe space and people would tell me stuff and people would share stories and it was just magical.
How did the truck look? Was it like lights in the inside? What
oh yeah,
color
it was like a legit store inside. Okay. So you would walk in. It was a 77 step van. So I learned a lot about carbureted engines, which connected me. My dad was a car guy, so that was really fun. I felt connected to my dad whenever I was driving the truck. But you would walk in. So imagine it would be like a vintage UPS truck. It's kind of that size. And we tricked it out with like a ramp in the stairs in the back, and you'd come in and my brother built all beautiful built-ins. There was a dressing room in there. It was a little mini store. It was incredible. It was a little mini store with, a really nice light. We had really good, my brother John did all the mechanics of the step van. And then my brother Jim did all the interior retail design with like systems for clothing and jewelry and all that kind of stuff.
How are you juggling all of these different things?
I kind of like jive on it. I like staying busy.
Okay.
I like staying busy. I didn't do the truck until my youngest went to college. I knew I didn't want to do that until Sean went to college. And then I've always been super involved in my kids' like school, and like Sean was in rowing, Kels was in dance, Sid was in cross country. I was really involved in their activities. So when they were all gone and I wasn't involved in those activities, I had all this time and space and I wasn't helping take care of my dad anymore. And there was just space and it just gave so much. So it was worth it. It was worth it.
I want to make sure that I get this question correct. So you do all that, it was worth it. And looking back, you have all of your things that you have going on: business, education, children, seeing them grow up. Something happens. Your daughter Kelsey was diagnosed with cancer. How did that redefine your perspective on success and purpose?
I closed my business is what I did. I retired from my business was the first thing. That is it's like it'll be before and after. My whole life will be before and after Kels got brain cancer for sure. It is the hardest thing I've ever experienced in my whole life, and it's still there. It's not. She's done with treatment, but it's ever so. But she has a good prognosis. It was very triggering because my dad died of brain cancer. It's a different kind of brain cancer. It's not hereditary, so we just got a really bad hand. And at the same time, my mom had really bad dementia, and it was aggressive dementia, and that was like really traumatic. So at that point, I have a granddaughter. So when my daughter got her brain cancer, it was right when her baby was a year. So it was just like, okay, what the journey is now, taking care of family, like 100%. Like there was no question that was going to be the priority. It's always been the priority. I think that's why I switched to the university, because it gave me more flexibility and things like that. But, I learned from my dad, and all of us were very close, and we just kind of do one step in front of the other. And, but yeah, at that point, I was like, I knew I couldn't keep the business open because I wanted to give all I could to Kelsey and help however I could. And there was a lot of caregiving help that was needed. And it was time. So, and I wanted to leave, not forcing to close, but there's no question that that's why I closed the business. So I think I'm definitely a glass half full, but this isn't a glass half full at all. This is like a terrible glass. So, but I'm a pretty even person, thanks to my dad. I think I get that from him. And I'm a problem solver. Okay, this is what we have. Let's roll up our sleeves and okay, we just got to do the work, right? And so that helped, and the whole family came together to do that work together. And luckily, we're all kind of in the Midwest, and Sydney, our Kelsey's sister, moved up from Chicago to be close, and so we had a team, we had a squad, and Kelsey has really good friend support. But until you get through it. Then after that, the whole time too, you also have to have a mental health plan. Everybody's like getting therapy. You can't, it's not normal. It's not normal at all. So you need a mental health plan. And we've all, and it's great that I think we've all gone through hard parts of it at different times. Sometimes we all crash and burn at the same time, but generally it doesn't always happen that way. But it actually, post-treatment has actually been really hard. I think a lot of us have been doing a lot of work after, because you're so like just in the trenches during treatment that you just kind of have to. So if anybody's going through anything like that, you have to like take care of your mental health and your physical health. If not, you're not going to be help to anybody.
It's, the things that you've mentioned along with therapy, family, are those the two main things that help keep you grounded through the time?
Yes. And I also found Reiki, which is going to sound very woo-woo and spiritual, but it's not. Well, I mean, it is woo-woo and it is slightly spiritual, but Kels, Reiki is an energy clearing, healing, complementary medicine. Think of it sort of as like massage meets acupuncture in a way.
Okay.
It is a practice that's been around for hundreds of years. It came from Japan. And when Kels was in the thick of treatment, someone had recommended for her to get Reiki. And I witnessed what it did to her and me, as far as it deals with your central nervous system, your vagus nerve, and helping relax all those pieces. And so Kels was in the middle of treatment. After I witnessed that, like kind of how I do about anything, I got Reiki curious immediately. I'm like, what is this? What is going on? What is this? And I just did a ton of research. And as an academic, I was like, okay, there's legit people that are doing this kind of stuff and non-legit people. So I did a ton of research trying to find practitioners that have academic backgrounds, scientific backgrounds. And I found a master, Catherine Bastido, that's up in Montreal, and she comes from an academic background, a scientific background. And I went up there and got trained. It's been a life-changing experience. And then I went back again and I got a Reiki master practitioner, and now I have my own Reiki business. And it's weird. I feel like it's full circle, because all these connectedness pieces in my life that connect me to people that are really important. This is like the cherry on top of connecting me with people and helping people, because it's such a beautiful practice. And there's clinical trials now. There is scientific double-blind studies that it helps people's pain. It helps depression. You have to get trained by a legit person. It's very popular now, so you just have to be really careful about, if you are interested in getting Reiki, that you have somebody that's properly trained.
So I can't, you know how Dr. Strange went to the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
Dr. Kimbrough just can't go to like a, knockoff shop and go in there and, have superpowers in 2-3 hours. It's not that.
No, it's
okay.
not that. So yeah, it's, a good full-time week-long training to get my first 2 levels of certification, and then another week to get my other certification. It's very hands-on. It's very and it's very scientific. It's really incredible. They're learning more. Mayo studying it. A lot of places are studying it. So, and it complements my work. My current scholarship is really about healing centered practices for teachers. So it feels very aligned with everything right now, which is really nice.
I think about Reiki, and I think about reaching this step and understanding how I need to perform right now as a human being and what I'm interested in. it's not as simple as, okay, I'm gonna just step up and do this sometimes. And I have more of an understanding of that now than I did before. Talk to me about, I'll say this. I looked on your Instagram, okay?
Okay.
And you do a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
All right. So
Love to travel.
how has that expanded your worldview of people as you're going through this journey?
I love travel so much. To me, it's just the human connection and knowing like that we're all the same, but we're so different, and being in a different culture. Had the amazing opportunity to go to Japan to keynote for IVLA for International Visual Literacy, and
Congratulations.
thank you. The funny thing is, funny not funny, when Steve and I hiked up to this mountain to go to this special temple area, I didn't know it and that trip was transformed me in ways I'm still trying to unpack, and that was a while ago, maybe 8 years ago, but where Reiki started was literally at the top of the mountain, where we were at the bottom of the mountain, which is kind of blowing my mind because I was just like looking that up. And there's something just so spiritual about, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a very spiritual person. Reiki has no religious connotations. It's more like a complementary medicine. But it's good for me. I'm a planner and I like to do things. So I like to plan a trip, but what I love about traveling is that you have to get out of your comfort zone. So I think you always learn more about yourself when you travel, especially in different places. And it's just going to sound so basic, but it's just that the human connections, meeting people from all over the world is just so, fills your soul, and knows like we're all just people wanting the same thing, and just family, friends, love, all that kind of stuff. It's just very, and it just expands your mind. And I'm a visual person. I love photography. I mean, we both share that. And to just see it through a visual lens is really cool. Really cool.
When people hear your story, when they hear this interview,
okay,
from dyslexia to your doctorate, from systems to entrepreneurship, the struggle of that, from to healing, and also from just your entire background, what do you want them to take with them as they watch this interview and walk away from this interview? That
we really need to be our authentic selves, and take up as much space as you need to be really you. Like, I feel like a lot of us put masks on and try to align to something, but I think more and more, the more true you are to who you are at this moment in time. I mean, I'm not the same person that I was in undergrad or in grad or at the beginning of my NLU journey. Just being your true self, knowing like people are good. People are good. I know it's really hard to think about that right now, but at the end of the day, just connect with people, really listen to people, connect with people and care, and don't be afraid to care. Like, I just feel like a lot of us build a lot of walls, and we don't have to do that. Would be a couple of things I'd want to say. The other thing is, my journey is like the least linear thing possible, and take opportunities when they come, even if you're uncomfortable. A lot of times I was way over my skis and had no idea what I was doing. That's okay. That's when we learn. Like, I didn't know how to drive a step van. I broke that truck down multiple times and got stranded and would have to call for help. But I learned a lot. So don't be afraid to take a leap and to really just trust that you're going to learn something.
What's next for Dr. Karen Tardrew? What's on the horizon, and what are you looking forward to?
I'm really excited about my Reiki journey. I'm working on publishing a paper on some of my first stuff that I presented last fall, and I'm just blown away by the impact that it's having on people. And one thing you need to know about Reiki is it doesn't have to be in person. Some of the stuff that I put in my study was distance Reiki. You can do it via distance, which seems not like it's possible, but it is. And so I'm really excited to really have my life, I just got full professor, and this is kind of my last season at the university. I'm not going anywhere, but for this last season, I really want to integrate my my scholarship with my teaching and really my passions, which is a healing centered practice for teachers and educators. Want to travel more. I want to have more grandchildren. And yeah, spend time with my former doctoral students.
Yeah.
And
We're going to do that for sure.
Yeah.
We're going to do that for sure. It's been a pleasure.
Always.
It's been a pleasure. And one thing that I've taken away from this interview is that you have done so many different things that I had no clue. Starting two businesses now, being resilient, coming from the place that you started, truly ingratiating yourself with your students and building relationships that help prompt them to bigger successes, bigger journeys that they are interested in, dealing with the history, dealing with the trauma that you've experienced from your parents, your father dying from cancer, and then dealing with, the challenges that you have also with your children is just, to me, that speaks to your resiliency. And I want to be able to give you your flowers now and say that, I appreciate you and thank you for making me Dr. Cameron Kimbrough.
All right.
Helping me with that.
Well deserved. You worked really hard for that, and congratulations.
Thank you. All right. This has been a phenomenal interview. Another one from Beyond the Book. Please like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Dr. Karen Tardrew, can they reach you on Instagram?
Yeah, Karen Healing. So it's like Karen. So it's KUREN Healing.com is my website, and that's also my Instagram as well.
Okay. Shelby, you can wrap us up. Thank you.